In the course of time, Cain brought an offering to the Lord from the fruit of the ground, while Abel for his part brought the fatty portion of the firstlings of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor, so Cain was very angry and dejected. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why are you dejected? If you act rightly, you will be accepted, but if not, sin lies in wait at the door. Its urge is for you, yet you can rule over it." Cain said to his brother Abel, let us go out in the field. When they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Then the Lord asked Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" He answered, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" God then said, "What have you done? Your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are banned from the ground that opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. If you till the ground, it shall no longer give you its produce. You shall become a constant wanderer on the earth." Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is too great to bear. Look, you have now banished me from the ground. I must avoid you and be a constant wanderer on the earth. Anyone may kill me at sight. Not so, the Lord said to him. If anyone kills Cain, Cain shall be avenged 7 times. So the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one would kill him at sight. Cain then left the Lord's presence and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. Descendants of Cain and Seth. Cain had intercourse with his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. Cain also became the founder of a city which he named after his son Enoch. To Enoch was born Arad, and Arad became the father of Mahujael. Mahujael became the father of Methusael, and Methusael became the father of Lamech. Lamech took 2 wives. The name of the first was Adah, and the name of the second was Zillah. Adah gave birth to Jabal, who became the ancestor of those who dwell in tents and keep livestock. His brother's name was Jubal, who became the ancestor of all who play the lyre and the reed pipe. Zillah, on her part, gave birth to Tubal-Cain, the ancestor of all who forge instruments of bronze and iron. The sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. Lamech said to his wives, Adah and Zillah, hear my voice. Wives of Lamech, listen to my utterance. I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for bruising me. If Cain is avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times. Adam again had intercourse with his wife, and she gave birth to a son, whom she called Seth. God has granted me another offspring in place of Abel, she said, because Cain killed him. To Seth, in turn, a son was born, and he named him Enosh. At that time, people began to invoke the Lord by name. Genesis chapter 5. Generations Adam to Noah. This is the record of the descendants of Adam. When God created human beings, he made them in the likeness of God. He created them male and female. When they were created, he blessed them and named them humankind. Adam was 130 years old when he begot a son in his likeness, after his image, and he named him Seth. Adam lived 800 years after he begot Seth, and he had other sons and daughters. The whole lifetime of Adam was 930 years, then he died. When Seth was 105 years old, he begot Enosh. Seth lived 807 years after he begot Enosh, and he had other sons and daughters. The whole lifetime of Seth was 912 years, then he died. When Enosh was 90 years old, he begot Kenan. Enosh lived 815 years after he begot Kenan, and he had other sons and daughters. The whole lifetime of Enosh was 905 years, then he died. When Kenan was 70 years old, he begot Mahalalel. Kenan lived 840 years after he begot Mahalalel, and he had other sons and daughters. The whole lifetime of Kenan was 910 years, then he died. When Mahalalel was 65 years old, he begot Jared. Mahalalel lived 830 years after he begot Jared, and he had other sons and daughters. The whole lifetime of Mahalalel was 895 years. Then he died. When Jared was 162 years old, he begot Enoch. Jared lived 800 years after he begot Enoch, and he had other sons and daughters. The whole lifetime of Jared was 962 years. Then he died. When Enoch was 65 years old, he begot Methuselah. Enoch walked with God after he begot Methuselah for 300 years, and he had other sons and daughters. The whole lifetime of Enoch was 365 years. Enoch walked with God, and he was no longer here, for God took him. When Methuselah was 187 years old, he begot Lamech. Methuselah lived 782 years after he begot Lamech, and he had other sons and daughters. The whole lifetime of Methuselah was 969 years, then he died. When Lamech was 182 years old, he begot a son, and named him Noah, saying, This one shall bring us relief from our work and the toil of our hands, out of the very ground that the Lord has put under a curse. Lamech lived 595 years after he begot Noah, and he had other sons and daughters. The whole lifetime of Lamech was 777 years, then he died. When Noah was 500 years old, he begot Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Genesis chapter 6, Origin of the Nephilim. When human beings began to grow numerous on the earth, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw how beautiful the daughters of human beings were, and so they took for their wives whomever they pleased. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not remain in human beings forever, because they are only flesh. Their days shall comprise 120 years. The Nephilim appeared on earth in those days as well as later, after the sons of God had intercourse with the daughters of human beings, who bore them sons. They were the heroes of old, the men of renown. Warning of the flood. When the Lord saw how great the wickedness of human beings was on earth, and how every desire that their heart conceived was nothing but evil, the Lord regretted making human beings on the earth, and his heart was grieved. So the Lord said, I will wipe out from the earth the human beings I have created, and not only the human beings, but also the animals, and the crawling things, and the birds of the air, for I regret that I made them. But Noah found favor with the Lord. These are the descendants of Noah. Noah was a righteous man and blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God. Noah begot 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. But the earth was corrupt in the view of God and full of lawlessness. When God saw how corrupt the earth had become, since all mortals had corrupted their ways on earth, God said to Noah, I see that the end of all mortals has come, for the earth is full of lawlessness because of them, so I am going to destroy them with the earth. Preparation for the flood. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood. Equip the ark with various compartments and cover it inside and out with pitch. This is how you shall build it. The length of the ark will be 300 cubits, its width 50 cubits, and its height 30 cubits. Make an opening for daylight, and finish the ark a cubit above it. Put the ark's entrance on its side. You will make it with bottom, second, and third decks. I, on my part, am about to bring the flood waters on the earth, to destroy all creatures under the sky, in which there is the breath of life. Everything on earth shall perish. I will establish my covenant with you. You shall go into the ark, you and your sons, your wife and your sons' wives with you. Of all living creatures you shall bring 2 of every kind into the ark, 1 male and 1 female, to keep them alive along with you. Of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and of every kind of thing that crawls on the ground, 2 of each will come to you, that you may keep them alive. Moreover, you are to provide yourself with all the food that is to be eaten, and store it away, that it may serve as provisions for you and for them. Noah complied. He did just as God had commanded him. Genesis chapter 7. Then the Lord said to Noah, Go into the ark, you and your household, for you alone in this generation have I found to be righteous before me. Of every clean animal take with you 7 pairs, a male and its mate, and of the unclean animals 1 pair, a male and its mates. Likewise of every bird of the air 7 pairs, a male and a female, to keep their progeny alive over all the earth. For 7 days from now on I will bring rain down on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, and so I will wipe out from the face of the earth every being that I have made. Noah complied, just as the Lord had commanded. The great flood. Noah was 600 years old when the flood came upon the earth. Together with his sons, his wife, and his sons' wives, Noah went into the ark because of the waters of the flood. Of the clean animals and the unclean, of the birds and of everything that crawls on the ground, 2 by 2, male and female, came to Noah into the ark, just as God had commanded him. When the 7 days were over, the waters of the flood came upon the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day, all the fountains of the great abyss burst open, and the floodgates of the sky were opened. For 40 days and 40 nights, heavy rain poured down on the earth. On the very same day, Noah and his sons Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and Noah's wives, and the 3 wives of Noah's sons had entered the ark, together with every kind of wild animal, every kind of tame animal, every kind of crawling thing that crawls on the earth, and every kind of bird. Pairs of all creatures in which there was the breath of life came to Noah into the ark. Those that entered were male and female. Of all creatures they came, as God had commanded Noah. Then the Lord shut him in. The flood continued upon the earth for 40 days. As the waters increased, they lifted the ark so that it rose above the earth. The waters swelled and increased greatly on the earth, but the ark floated on the surface of the waters. Higher and higher on the earth the waters swelled until all the highest mountains under the heavens were submerged. The waters swelled 15 cubits higher than the submerged mountains. All creatures that moved on earth perished, birds, tame animals, wild animals, and all that teemed on the earth, as well as all humankind. Everything on dry land with the breath of life in its nostrils died. The Lord wiped out every being on earth, human beings and animals, the crawling things and the birds of the air. All were wiped out from the earth. Only Noah and those with him in the ark were left. And when the waters had swelled on the earth for 150 days, Genesis chapter 8, God remembered Noah and all the animals, wild and tame, that were with him in the ark. So God made a wind sweep over the earth, and the waters began to subside. The fountains of the abyss and the floodgates of the sky were closed, and the downpour from the sky was held back. Gradually the waters receded from the earth. At the end of 150 days, the waters had so diminished that in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark came to rest on the Mount of Ararat. The waters continued to diminish until the 10th month, and on the first day of the 10th month the tops of the mountains appeared. At the end of the 40 days, Noah opened the hatch of the ark that he had made, and he released a raven. It flew back and forth until the waters dried off from the earth. Then he released a dove to see if the waters had lessened on the earth, but the dove could find no place to perch, and it returned to him in the ark, for there was water over all the earth. Putting out his hand, he caught the dove and drew it back to him inside the ark. He waited yet 7 days more, and again released the dove from the ark. In the evening the dove came back, and there in its bill was a plucked off olive leaf. So Noah knew that the waters had diminished on the earth. He waited yet another 7 days, and then released the dove, but this time it did not come back. In the 601st year, in the 1st month, on the 1st day of the month, the water began to dry up on the earth. Noah then removed the covering of the ark, and saw the surface of the ground had dried. In the 2nd month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was dry. Then God said to Noah, Go out of the ark, together with your wife and your sons wives. Bring out with you every living thing that is with you, all creatures, be they birds or animals or crawling things that crawl on the earth, and let them abound on the earth and be fertile and multiply on it. So Noah came out, together with his sons and his wife and his sons' wives, and all the animals, all the birds, and all the crawling creatures that crawl on the earth went out of the ark by families. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and choosing from every clean animal and every clean bird, he offered burnt offerings on the altar. When the Lord smelled the sweet odor, the Lord said to himself, Never again will I curse the ground because of human beings, since the desires of the human heart are evil from youth, nor will I ever again strike down every living being as I have done. All the days of the earth, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, and day and night, shall not cease. Genesis chapter 9. Covenant with Noah. God blessed Noah and his sons, and said to them, Be fertile and multiply, and fill the earth. Fear and dread of you shall come upon all the animals of the earth, and all the birds of the air, upon all the creatures that move about on the ground, and all the fishes of the sea. Into your power they are delivered. Any living creature that moves about shall be yours to eat. I give them all to you as I did the green plants. Only meat with its lifeblood still in it you shall not eat. Indeed, for your own lifeblood I will demand an accounting. From every animal I will demand it, and from a human being, each one for the blood of another, I will demand an accounting for human life. Anyone who sheds the blood of a human being, by a human being shall that one's blood be shed. For in the image of God have human beings been made. Be fertile then and multiply, abound on earth and subdue it. God said to Noah and to his sons with him, See, I am now establishing my covenant with you and your descendants after you, and with every living creature that was with you, the birds, the tame animals, and all the wild animals that were with you, all that came out of the ark. I will establish my covenant with you, that never again shall all creatures be destroyed by the waters of a flood. There shall not be another flood to devastate the earth. God said, this is the sign of the covenant that I am making between me and you and every living creature with you for all ages to come. I set my bow in the clouds to serve as a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth and the bow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant between me and you and every living creature, every mortal being, so that the waters will never again become a flood to destroy every mortal being. When the bow appears in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature, every mortal being that is on earth. God told Noah, this is the sign of the covenant I have established between me and every mortal being that is on earth. Noah and his sons. The sons of Noah who came out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham was the father of Canaan. These three were the sons of Noah, and from them the whole earth was populated. Noah, a man of the soil, was the first to plant a vineyard. He drank some of the wine, became drunk, and lay naked inside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father's nakedness and told his two brothers outside. Shem and Japheth, however, took a robe, holding it in their shoulders. They walked backward and covered their father's nakedness. Since their faces were turned the other way, they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah woke up from his wine and learned what his youngest son had done to him, he said, Cursed be Canaan, the lowest of slaves shall he be to his brothers. He also said, Blessed be the Lord, the God of Shem, let Canaan be his slave. May God expand Japheth, and may he dwell among the tents of Shem, and let Canaan be his slave. Noah lived 350 years after the flood. The whole lifetime of Noah was 950 years. Then he died. Genesis chapter 10, Table of the Nations. These are the descendants of Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, to whom children were born after the flood. The descendants of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Taras. The descendants of Gomer, Ashkenaz, Diphath, Togarmah. The descendants of Javan, Elisha, Tarshish, the Kittim, and the Rodanim. From these branched out the maritime nations. These are the descendants of Japheth by their lands, each with its own language, according to their clans, by their nations. The descendants of Ham, Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. The descendants of Cush, Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Ramah, and Sabteka. The descendants of Ramah, Sheba, and Dedan. Cush became the father of Nimrod, who was the first to become a mighty warrior on earth. He was a mighty hunter in the eyes of the Lord, hence the saying, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter in the eyes of the Lord. His kingdom originated in Babylon, Erech, and Akkad, all of them in the land of Shinar. From that land he went forth to Assyria, where he built Nineveh, Rehoboth-ir, and Calah, as well as Resen between Nineveh and Calah, the latter being the principal city. Mizraim became the father of the Ludim, the Anamim, the Lehabim, the Naphtuhim, the Pathrusim, the Casluhim, and the Caphtorim, from whom the Philistines came. Canaan became the father of Sidon, his firstborn, and of Heth, also of the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Arkites, the Sinites, the Arvadites, the Zemarites, the Hamathites. Afterward, the clans of the Canaanites spread out, so that the Canaanite borders extended from Sidon all the way to Gerar, near Gaza, and all the way to Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim, near Lasha. These are the descendants of Ham, according to their clans, according to their languages, by their lands, by their nations. To Shem also, Japheth's older brother, and the ancestor of all the children of Eber, children were born. The descendants of Shem, Elam, Asher, Arphaxad, Lud, and Aram. The descendants of Aram, Uz, Hul, Gether, and Mash. Arphaxad became the father of Shelah, and Shelah became the father of Eber. To Eber 2 sons were born. The name of the first was Peleg, for in his time the world was divided. And the name of his brother was Joktan. Joktan became the father of Almodad, Sheleph, Hazar Maveth, Jerah, Hadoram, Uzal, Diklah, Obal, Abimael, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab. All these were descendants of Joktan. Their settlements extended all the way from Mesha to Sephir, the eastern hill country. These are the descendants of Shem, according to their clans, according to their languages, by their lands, by their nations. These are the clans of Noah's sons, according to their origins and by their nations. From these the nations of the earth branched out after the flood. Genesis chapter 11, Tower of Babel. The whole world had the same language and the same words. When they were migrating from the east, they came to a valley in the land of Shinar and settled there. They said to one another, "Come, let us mold bricks and harden them with fire." They used bricks for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the sky, and so make a name for ourselves. Otherwise we shall be scattered all over the earth." The Lord came down to see the city and the tower that the people had built. Then the Lord said, "If now, while they are one people and all have the same language, they have started to do this, nothing they presume to do will be out of their reach. Come, let us go down and confuse their language, so that no one will understand the speech of another." So the Lord scattered them from there over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the speech of all the world. From there the Lord scattered them over all the earth. Descendants from Shem to Abraham. These are the descendants of Shem. When Shem was 100 years old, he begot Arphaxad 2 years after the flood. Shem lived 500 years after he begot Arphaxad, and he had other sons and daughters. When Arphaxad was 35 years old, he begot Shelah. Arphaxad lived 403 years after he begot Shelah, and he had other sons and daughters. When Shelah was 30 years old, he begot Eber. Shelah lived 430 years after he begot Eber, and he had other sons and daughters. When Eber was 34 years old, he begot Peleg. Eber lived 430 years after he begot Peleg, and he had other sons and daughters. When Peleg was 30 years old, he begot Reu. Peleg lived 209 years after he begot Reu, and he had other sons and daughters. When Reu was 32 years old, he begot Serug. Reu lived 207 years after he begot Serug, and he had other sons and daughters. When Serug was 30 years old, he begot Nahor. Serug lived 200 years after he begot Nahor, and he had other sons and daughters. When Nahor was 29 years old, he begot Terah. Nahor lived 119 years after he begot Terah. Nahor lived 119 years after he begot Terah, and he had other sons and daughters. When Terah was 70 years old, he begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran. The story of the ancestors of Israel, Terah. These are the descendants of Terah. Terah begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran begot Lot. Haran died before Terah his father in his native land in Ur of the Chaldeans. Abram and Nahor took wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah, daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah and Iscah. Sarai was barren, she had no child. Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarah, the wife of his son Abram, and brought them out of Ur of the Chaldeans to go to the land of Canaan. But when they reached Haran, they settled there. The lifetime of Terah was 205 years. Then Terah died in Haran.